Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Before starting the video, if you are new here, please support and subscribe to my channel. Let's start with the name of Allah, the most gracious and most merciful. At a time when the mighty Roman Empire, the greatest empire in history, was still deep in idol worship, those who believed in the truth faced brutal persecution. Among them were 7 courageous young men who held influential positions within the empire. Their hearts could no longer bear the injustice, and they boldly stood before the emperor, declaring, "Allah is one." Despite the threats and pressure, they didn't waver. Their fearless stand for faith was about to be rewarded in an extraordinary way. They sought refuge in a cave, and what felt like a single day of rest to them turned out to be 300 years in the eyes of the world. Could this miraculous event, mentioned in the Quran, be a real case of time travel? Were the Ashab Al Kahf, the companions of the cave, actually time travelers? What's the longest you've ever slept? 10 hours? Maybe 15? Now imagine waking up after 300 years of sleep. What would that feel like? This is exactly what happened to a group of faithful youth, young believers in Allah, known as the Ashab Al Kahf. Long before the advent of Islam, there were followers of Prophet Isa, Jesus, who still upheld the belief in the oneness of Allah. At that time, the Roman Empire not only practiced paganism, they aggressively forced others to return to idol worship. Anyone who refused faced horrific punishments, being burned alive or nailed to crosses. Most believers were poor and defenseless. Yet, among them were noble-hearted young men who held wealth and power, some of whom became the Ashab Al Kahf. These young nobles had quietly embraced faith. But as the persecution grew worse, their inner pain deepened. Every lash against a believer felt like it struck their own souls. They felt compelled to act, though they weren't yet united. Each had come to faith separately, unaware of the others. During idol worship ceremonies, each one would slip away unnoticed, refusing to bow to false gods. Then came a moment that shook the city. The emperor himself was coming. To impress him, the local governor intensified the crackdown, hoping to erase all signs of monotheism before the emperor's arrival. But he was unaware. Believers were closer than he thought, even within his own court. Just as Allah placed Musa in Pharaoh's palace, these young believers were placed in the heart of Rome's power. And just like every era has its Pharaoh, every era has its Musa. When the emperor arrived, the city's elite knelt before him, pledging loyalty. Then came a moment no one expected. One of the young men from the Ashab Al Kahf stood up and with unshakable courage declared, "Allah is one." Those words thundered through the palace. The boldness of one gave strength to the others. One by one, they stepped forward and revealed their faith, shaking the very foundation of Roman pride. The emperor, enraged yet cautious, hesitated. If he executed them, their story would spread like wildfire, inspiring others. Instead, he gave them 3 days to recant. But during those 3 days, they were tortured and pressured. Still, they did not give up, because faith comes with a price. Believers across all times have faced hardship. If you truly believe, you must be ready to endure. These brave youths escaped one night, fleeing into the countryside until they reached a cave, believed to be on Mount Angulus, and placed their full trust in Allah. With them was a loyal dog named Kitmir, who guarded the entrance as they rested. When their enemies arrived at the cave, they were overwhelmed by fear and fled. And what happened next is preserved forever in the verses of Surat Al Kahf. Inside that cave, they slept, not for hours or days, but for 3 entire centuries. When they awoke, they felt as if no more than a day had passed. Their bodies hadn't aged, and they sensed nothing unusual. But when they tried to buy food using their old coins, the truth was revealed. Centuries had gone by. This story may be one of the most intriguing cases of time displacement in history. But what does science say? Did they actually travel through time? Verses 9 to 26 of Surat Al Kahf recount the full story. When we reflect on these verses deeply, we may discover subtle signs, even scientific insights, about the mystery of time. Allah says, "My messenger, do you think the story of the people of the cave and Al-Raqim is something strange? When the young men took shelter in the cave, they said, 'Rabbana, give us mercy from you, and guide us to what is right in our situation.' So, we sealed their ears in the cave for many years. Then, we woke them up to see which of the two groups could better calculate how long they had stayed. We tell you their story with truth. They were young men who believed in their Rabb, and we increased them in guidance. O Messenger, if you had seen them in the cave, you would have noticed the sun turning to the right as it rose, and to the left as it set, while they lay in a spacious area inside the cave. This is one of the signs of Allah. Whoever Allah guides is truly guided. But whoever He lets go astray, you will never find a friend to guide them. If you had looked at them, you would think they were awake, but they were sleeping. We were turning them to the right and to the left, and their dog lay at the entrance of the cave with its front legs stretched out. If you had seen them, you would have run away in fear, and your heart would be filled with terror. Then, we woke them up, and they began asking each other, 'How long have we stayed?' One of them said, 'Maybe a day, or less than a day.' Then they said, 'Your Rabb knows best how long we stayed.' They remained in their cave for 300 years, and they added 9 more. Say, Allah knows best how long they stayed." This part of the story contains an important detail about how time is measured. Some scholars explain that the difference between 300 and 309 years comes from the lunar and solar calendars. According to the lunar calendar, 300 lunar years is equal to approximately 309 solar years. This shows a precise and intentional calculation related to the concept of time in the story. Now, let's imagine together. 7 young men take shelter in a cave and stay asleep there for 309 years. If time had passed normally for them, they should have aged, or even died, by the time they woke up. But no. This is where the power of Allah comes in. The ayah suggests that when they woke up, they were still young and able to continue their lives as normal. This means their bodies were preserved and protected inside the cave. In fact, the ayah don't just say they were in the cave, but in a special space inside the cave. In Surah Al Kahf, verse 17, it says they were in a fajwa. In Arabic, fajwa refers to a hollow or elevated space, untouched by the ground. It can mean a protected and hard-to-reach place, like something suspended in the air. Some scholars and researchers interpret this as a kind of time capsule. When they woke up, their very first question was, "How long have we stayed?" And their answer was just as surprising. A day, or less than a day. But the ayah clearly says, they stayed for 309 years. This shows that their sense of time had stopped, or that time had passed differently for them. And then, look closely at the next words. Your Rabb knows best how long you stayed. If the time that passed inside the cave was the same as the outside, and Allah already said it was 309 years, then why is there another statement that only Allah truly knows the time? This might mean there was a second, hidden layer of time. It suggests that inside the cave, by the will of Allah, a different dimension of time was operating. For these young men, time may have stopped or moved very slowly. The mysterious language in the ayah pushes the limits of our understanding. While the outside world aged over 309 years, their bodies and minds remained untouched by time. Yes, The ayah clearly says they were in a special space inside the cave. Classic scholars like Ibn Kathir explain this word as referring to a deeper part of the cave, protected from direct sunlight. Because the sunlight did not reach them directly, their bodies did not decay, either physically or biologically. For them, one day passed. But in our time, it was 309 years. This is actually scientifically possible. If a person stays in a place where time moves slowly, like a spaceship traveling near the speed of light, or somewhere close to a black hole, only one day might pass for them, while hundreds of years pass in the outside world. The story of Ashab Al Kahf in the Quran can be understood in this way. Time seemed to pause for them, and their words, "A day or less than a day," now make perfect sense. The cave of Ashab Al Kahf might have been located in a place with special magnetic or cosmic properties. This could be the reason why time flowed differently there. In modern science, time travel is studied through several fascinating theories. Einstein's theory of relativity tells us that time is relative, and when speed increases, time slows down. In quantum mechanics, the idea of superposition suggests that an object could exist in different points in time at once. Some scientists believe that traveling into the past is not possible, but traveling into the future might be, at least in a certain way. This may explain why the young men of Ashab Al Kahf experienced only one day, but woke up in a different era. It's possible that they really experienced time travel, in a form that science now supports. If the cave was inside a kind of cosmic or magnetic anomaly, the young men might have been physically removed from normal time. If you pay attention, the ayah also mentioned the sun and its light. You may know from Einstein's equations that as we get close to the speed of light, time slows down. And at the speed of light, time stops. There's only one known place where even light cannot escape: the black hole. Nothing can reach the speed of light. But scientists believe that at the beginning of the universe, space itself expanded faster than light. This period is called cosmic inflation. So if space-time itself can expand, some physicists say that faster-than-light movement is not impossible. In the center of a black hole, there is something called a singularity, a point where mass is infinitely dense. In that place, the concepts of space and time collapse. Space has no meaning anymore. Time does not flow in a straight line. And some scientists say time itself breaks down. According to general relativity, time bends inside a black hole. The usual order of time, past, present, and future, no longer exists in a normal way. Some theorists suggest that, at the singularity, all moments of time could be layered together, not past, present, and future as separate, but all as one single now. This is sometimes called timelessness, or the collapse of time. In Sufism, especially with thinkers like Ibn Arabi, time is not just something measured by hours. Time is seen as a state, a perception, a kind of veil. The idea that inside a black hole time collapses and everything becomes just one single moment is very similar to Ibn Arabi's concept of al-an, the now. He says, in reality, there is no time. Existence only appears in the present moment. The singularity inside a black hole is actually very close to the Lahut realm in Sufi understanding. In the Alam al-Lahut, there is no space and no time. Everything begins there. But to reach it, one must be willing to lose their self completely. And in Sufism, there is also this belief. With Allah, time is not a thing. He is above time. For Him, past, present, and future are all one. Allah sees all times at once. Just like He sees this moment, He also sees our future actions and our past. Because time is a dimension, and Allah is not inside this dimension. If someone could step outside of time and look at it from the outside, all of time would appear as one single moment. And this, according to science, is possible inside a black hole. Remember, Allah created everything, including black holes. If He gave this ability to something He created, of course, He Himself has that power completely. It is amazing that while modern science is still young, Sufism was already offering these deep ideas centuries ago. This shows how rich and profound Islamic knowledge truly is. Now, let's return to Ashab Al Kahf. They were in a protected space inside the cave, like a kind of capsule. And maybe this capsule was part of their divine protection. But then the ayah says, "If you had seen them, you would surely run away in fear and be filled with terror." Why would we be scared just by seeing them? Perhaps the capsule had to move in some way to slow down time. And to make time move slower, it may have reached incredible speeds. This could have caused strange or frightening changes in their bodies, or in the capsule itself. High-speed motion, according to time travel theories, can distort the body. Maybe this explains why the sight of them would have been terrifying. Also, in such a situation, very loud sounds might be created due to vibrations or resonance. But the ayah says, "We struck their ears and placed a veil." That means they couldn't hear any outside sound, and their consciousness was closed off. Then the same ayah continues, "And we turned them to the right and to the left." From this, we understand the young men were constantly turning from side to side. Or, still referring back to verse 17, it may be pointing to a state of suspension, like floating in a void inside the cave, moving in a continuous and unnatural way. One possible scientific explanation for this is resonance frequency. When a sound wave matches the natural frequency of an object, the object begins to vibrate more strongly. This is called resonance. Could it be that the space they were in was resonating in such a way that time slowed down? Now, back to the young men. They discuss how long they had slept and agreed. A day, or less than a day. That's how long it felt to them. But in our world, 300 years had passed. Let's pause and look at this from a scientific lens, through the principles of light and physics. We know from Einstein's theory that time stops at the speed of light. But for the people of the cave, time didn't completely stop. A full day passed for them, which means they were moving just below the speed of light. That's our first clue. According to Einstein, no object with mass can reach the speed of light. But light itself, photons, can. Now imagine this, a photon traveling for 13 billion light years. To us, that's billions of years. But to the photon, no time has passed. From its perspective, the beginning of time and this very moment are happening now. That's not fiction. That's physics. If Allah granted this timelessness to a particle of light, called nur in Islam, couldn't He also grant something similar to a human, carried by a ruh, soul, at His command? Absolutely. If the human body were protected while moving at such extraordinary speeds, time would slow dramatically. That's why 309 years could feel like just a few moments, or a single day. This idea isn't far-fetched when you read the Quranic descriptions, because they align with modern scientific understanding of time dilation. Later, Allah awakened them. One of the young men went out to buy food, but when he tried to use old coins, he realized something was off. The city had changed. The people were different. The world had moved on. They had not. The truth became clear. They had traveled through time. Now pause again and think, why did Allah share this story? There's powerful context behind it. At the time of its revelation, the disbelievers of Makkah were mocking the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. They ridiculed the stories of the Quran, claiming they could tell better tales themselves. So, they devised a plan. They sent one of their men, Nadir ibn al-Harith, to the Jewish scholars in Medina, saying, "You are the people of Scripture. We need your help. Muhammad claims to be a prophet. How can we test him?" The scholars responded, Ask him 3 things. Number 1. About the young men who disappeared into a cave. Number 2. About a traveler who reached the ends of the earth. Number 3. And about the ruh, the soul. If he answers, then he is a prophet. So Nader returned to Makkah and posed these questions to the prophet. And then Jibril, alayhi salam, came with the answers. The result? Surat Al Kahf, a chapter that beautifully contains both the story of the Ashab Al Kahf and the journey of Dhul Qarnayn, the traveler from east to west. The disbelievers were stunned. The very story they thought would expose the prophet only confirmed his truth. When the youth finally awoke after centuries, the message was clear. Life and time belong to Allah. He can cause a servant to sleep for 300 years and wake them untouched by age or decay. So what about when we lie in the sleep of our graves? If Allah could awaken the people of the cave, He can surely resurrect us all on the day of judgment. And for Him, it is easy. When news of this miracle spread, people rushed to the cave. They came to witness what they once thought was only legend. Their hearts were filled with awe. Their belief in the afterlife became firm. They now knew Allah can bring the dead back to life, just as He did with the Ashab Al Kahf. After this miraculous return, the young men went back to their cave. They raised their hands in supplication, bowed in sujud, and returned to eternal sleep, awaiting the day of resurrection. In their honor, a place of worship was built at the mouth of the cave. Thus, their story came to an end. But their mission was complete. They became living proof of the hereafter, a sign of Allah's power, a message that transcends time. And now, we want to explore more. Next, we'll journey into the story of Dhul Qarnayn, the one who traveled from east to west and built a mighty barrier. Some scholars and scientists suggest this barrier might even hint at interdimensional travel, wormholes, or cosmic gates. So what do you think? The story, the miracle, the science, the timeless message of Islam. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're ready to go deeper, stay with us. Because the Quran isn't just a book of the past. It's a guide for right now and every moment to come. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications to stay updated. Allah bless you all.